The Locked On Podcast Network presents the Big 6 in 60. The 6 biggest national sports stories from the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Get the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 60 minutes. The Big 6 in 60 starts now with the biggest story in sports.
The NBA playoffs are here, and every possession matters. If you're looking to get even closer to the action, FanDuel has a great offer to get you started. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That's right, turn $5 into $150 in bonus bets just for getting started. I like using FanDuel during the playoffs because everything I need is right there in one place. You can check stats, trends, and matchups before making your picks, which makes the whole experience feel a lot more informed. Whether you're looking at player props or following your favorite stars, it adds another level of excitement to every game. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. FanDuel. Play your game.
The Cavs going to Detroit. They find a way to get a win on the road in the playoffs because Evan Mobley came up clutch, James Harden was vintage James Harden, and Donovan Mitchell delivered when it mattered.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
And this game was kind of the inverse of games that we have seen the Cavs play in the past, where they have had a lead and they have not been able to close out a game, right? Like, think back to Game 4 in Toronto, where the Cavs were up by 9 points with under 5 minutes left to go, or 8 points with under 5 minutes left to go. They can't find a way to close the deal. Think back to last year. Games against Indiana where they have a lead late and Tyrese Halliburton's heroics and the Cavs kind of melting down cost them a win in the second round against the Pacers. And that has happened, it feels like, too many times against the Cavs. And that, I think, is a big reason why the mental toughness of this team has been questioned so frequently over the past couple of years, because they haven't been on this side of the game that they were. And in this game, the Cavs trailed by 9 points with under 4 minutes left. They were, I thought, dead in the water. I thought there's no way that this team is going to find a way to come back in this game. There's no way this team is going to find a way to win this game. I was ready to talk on this podcast about what a missed opportunity this was, considering the Cavs had a 4-point lead going into the fourth quarter and they had fought back from down by as many as 15, and they really had all the momentum in this series and they let it slip through their hands, and all those things would have been true. But instead, the Cavs were the team that closed out this game. The Cavs were the team that made clutch play after clutch play, whether it's Max Strus hitting a three-pointer, Evan Mobley hitting a three-pointer, and then knocking down 2 free throws to tie the game with under 40 seconds left, or with 45 seconds left, whatever it was left in regulation, for Evan Mobley to step up in those moments and make huge plays, and for the Cavs to even be in that position because of how good James Harden was in this game. Harden finished with 30 points, had 8 rebounds, had 6 assists, did turn the ball over 6 times, which, like, that is an issue, and that was part of the reason why that this game was what it was, because the Cavs got into too much of a problem with their turnovers again. They turned it over 17 times. That led to 27 points for the Pistons. Like, that is why this was a close game, because I do think that the Cavs did a lot of good things in just about every other facet of it. But the Cavs needed this type of performance from James, partially because Donovan Mitchell wasn't very good through regulation. He scored 7 points in overtime, was a perfect 3 of 3 in the final 5 minutes. Like, he was awesome and helped them win this game because of what he did in overtime. But the Cavs really needed James Harden throughout this entire game. And James stepped up, and I know, again, six turnovers is too many turnovers. I get that. Not going to gloss over that. But they needed a vintage James Harden game. They needed 30 points from James Harden. They needed him to go out there and, for stretches of this game, I'm not going to say for the entire game, but for stretches of this game, they needed him to go out there and be the best player on the floor. And he stepped up. This was, to me, maybe not statistically speaking, the best game that James has played as a member of the Cavs, but when you think about the circumstances of this game, when you think about what he did, the fact that it was on the road for a team that had been 0-5 in its first 5 road games in the postseason against the 60-win team in Detroit, with the series tied at 2, James Harden has not had a bigger moment as a member of the Cavs. Not even close. He stepped up in a way that the Cavs so badly needed him to, And I think that is something that should give this team, this group, this fan base a lot of confidence moving forward. Because there's always going to be, and like at this point in James's career, where he's in his 17th season and he is 36 years of age, he's not going to change any narrative about who he's been as a postseason player. That's not going to go away. Like, that is what it is at this point. But for him to have this game in this moment, it is the postseason James Harden experience so far. I think, and I'm not saying that he's been great every game, because that hasn't been true. He had a couple of bad games against Toronto. He had a couple of subpar games in this series against Detroit early in the series. So, like, I'm not going to just act as if those things didn't happen. But in the big moments, James has been really good for the Cavs. He was really good, I thought. I know he didn't shoot the ball great, but he got to the line 9 times in Game 7, I think it was, against the Raptors. Thought he was good in Game 6. He was very good in this game, too. In the big moments, James has delivered in a way that the Cavs need him to. And I think that you can see, as this group gets more and more time together on the floor, I think you can see them grow a little bit more comfortable playing alongside each other. And that is one of the things that James did talk about after this, because it's not the first time that James has been a second option. But when you think about what the other lead options or other quote-unquote best players on teams that he's played for have been, it's been Kevin Durant. Cavs don't have anybody like Kevin Durant. They don't have Evan Mobley is awesome, and we will talk about his heroics in this game because he made some monster plays, and he was awesome, I thought. But he's not Kevin Durant. Kawhi Leonard. The Cavs don't have a wing like Kawhi. They don't have a wing like Kevin Durant. James has not played alongside a guard like Donovan. And I don't know that he's played alongside a big quite like Evan either. So I think that we are seeing him kind of on a game-by-game basis figure some things out, not only about the Pistons, which the Cavs have done, but I think we have watched James figure some things out about the Cavs, and I think we have watched the Cavs, even just like throughout the course of this series, I think this has happened. And I think we have watched the Cavs figure out things about James as well. And I think that's a really important thing, because if that doesn't happen, like, I don't know that James would have been capable of having this game in this spot in the first round, because I'm just not sure, not because he's not good enough to do it, obviously he is, but I think that the battles that this team now has started to go through as a group, I think that stuff matters a lot. And I do think that because this team has been through some of the things that they've been through, and I know that this group is different than last year's group, but ask yourself this. If the Cavs don't lose Game 4 in Toronto the way they did, where they were up by 8 points with less than 5 minutes left, if they don't lose that game, do they have what it takes to come back and win this game? Let's say that first round against the Raptors would have been a cakewalk. Let's just pretend that it would have been a mirror image of the series against Miami last year. Do the Cavs have the mental toughness, or like the 10,000 hours type thing, to come up clutch in this situation that they did on Wednesday night? I'm not sure that they do. So I do think that you can look at this game. You can look at the way that James played. You can look at the way that Evan played. You can look at how good Donovan was in overtime after not being very good for the first 48 minutes of this game. I think you can look at those things, and I think you can say, you know what? There has been growth in this team. There has been growth from a mental toughness standpoint. There's been growth from a basketball standpoint. I think there's been growth from a physical toughness standpoint. And I do think James is part of that. And I know that he's not going to get credit for being a tough guy, because like he's not some enforcer type, but he's a big dude. Like, he's not somebody that's going to be out physicaled on the perimeter. I think Max Strus is part of that. I think at this point, like, I'm ready to say Evan Mobley is part of that. Evan Mobley in this series, and Evan hit a couple of big shots. He had a couple of big free throws. He had some big moments in this game. He has been more physical than Jalen Duren, Isaiah Stewart, Paul Reed, whatever big guy for Detroit you want to talk about. Evan Mobley has out-toughed them in this series. I don't think that's debatable. I think the same thing can be said for Jared Allen, who is not going to get the same level of shine that Evan is, because Evan had some big moments late in this game. But Jared Allen was awesome too. He had 16 and 10. Was a team high plus 14. James was a plus 11 in 43 minutes of this game. The Cavs won this game because they have been through some battles in the past. They won this game because James Harden was awesome. And when they traded Darius Garland for him, whatever that may have done for this team's future, they don't win this game with Darius Garland. They do not win this game without James Harden. And I think that is an important thing. And I'm not going to sit here right now at 1 o'clock in the morning after the Cavs win in overtime game 5 and relitigate a trade. But I feel really confident that when Kobe Altman pulled the trigger on the trade for James Harden, it was a game like this in mind. Because I don't know how many guys in the NBA have this type of performance, this specific way James had this type of performance, because he was 8 of 21 from the floor. It's not like he had a miraculous shooting game. He was 3 of 10 from beyond the arc. Had a couple of big shots, though. He did do that. But he got to the line 14 times. The Cavs needed that. They needed scoring from James Harden. The 8 rebounds. Very, very important thing. We talk about how this is a team rebounding type of series because of how physical Detroit is, even though, again, the Cavs have matched their physicality throughout this series. But they need their guards to rebound. And guess what? James goes out and gets 8 rebounds in this game. I thought that this was the best game that James has played so far as a member of the Cavs, and it came in the biggest spot that he's had as a member of the Cavs. And truthfully, this is, maybe I should have mentioned this earlier, and we'll talk about this more on the full edition of the show. This is the biggest win of this era. Now, the Cavs have to go out and they have to find a way to get another win in this series and advance to the Eastern Conference Finals. But the Cavs have not won a game like this since trading for Donovan Mitchell. They have not. Like, this is the biggest win, really, since LeBron went to LA 8 years ago. Think about that for a second. The Cavs were down by 9 with less than 4 minutes to go on the road in a series tied at 2 against a 60-win Detroit Pistons #1 seed team. And they found a way to get a win to take a 3-2 series lead back to Cleveland with an opportunity to clinch a spot in the Eastern Conference Finals on Friday night at Rocket Arena. Think about how that sounds compared to what this podcast sounded like 12 months ago when the Cavs lost in 5 games to the Indiana Pacers, or what the conversation about the Cavs was 24 months ago when they lost in 5 games to the Boston Celtics, or what the conversation was 36 months ago when the lights were too bright for them against the New York Knicks. Think about the way that this team has grown over the past several years. And I don't want to sit here and say that Wednesday night was a culmination of it, because there's a lot of basketball left to be played. The Cavs are guaranteed at least 2 more games, and if they find a way to win one of them, they're going to go to the conference finals and face the New York Knicks. But this, to me, I think that this game in Detroit doesn't happen without James Harden. And I don't think it happens with a lot of this group. And really, this group, maybe as a whole, hasn't been through it together. But everyone on that roster, for the most part, that's in the rotation right now, they've dealt with moments like this. And I think without those moments, this is a game the Pistons probably find a way to win.
The NBA playoffs are here, and every possession matters. If you're looking to get even closer to the action, FanDuel has a great offer to get you started. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That's right, turn $5 into $150 in bonus bets just for getting started. I like using FanDuel during the playoffs because everything I need is right there in one place. You can check stats, trends, and matchups before making your picks, which makes the whole experience feel a lot more informed. It's a really easy app to navigate, and it makes playoff basketball even more engaging from start to finish. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. FanDuel, play your game.
Miami Dolphins running back De'Von Achane has secured the bag.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast.
De'Von Achane got the bag last night on a 4-year contract extension that he and the Dolphins agreed to terms on that makes him one of the league's highest paid running backs. And of course, you have to play the game within the game. When these contracts get announced, there's all kinds of technicalities and loopholes for what you report to make it sound as sexy as possible to grab the headline, right? That's part of the deal with NFL contract reporting. And we've already kind of seen some cracks as far as the base value of this contract versus the maximum value of this contract. Where are the talking points that put this as a win for Achane and his camp? And he's represented by Rock Nation. Where are the talking points that have this as a win for the Dolphins? This contract came out last night. And I gave it a little bit of time before doing the show. I did the YouTube short immediately after the news dropped. And I know everybody was like, oh, Kyle, hop on an emergency podcast. But wanted to give it a little bit of space to kind of collect my thoughts, collect the numbers, and sort through some of the noise. Let's start first and foremost with this. The Dolphins put their money where their mouth is. This is just the latest example of executive John Eric Sullivan telling us at the forefront of this offseason what they were going to do. And they have followed through on just about every talking point. There's been some exceptions, right? They addressed quarterback. They didn't draft a quarterback, but they did add a quarterback to the room. Their quarterback competition is probably going to be more of a long-term scope as compared to an immediately happening in 2026 perspective. But he said they were going to get themselves in a healthy cap situation. They're going to have $100+ million in cap space in 2027. They said, we're going to build the infrastructure of the team. We're going to build through the draft. They moved on from some older players, maximized their draft picks. They had the second highest volume of draft picks they've ever had in the 7-round draft class in franchise history. He talked about if we're going to spend in free agency, we're going to spend on splashes, right? And we're going to spend on guys that we think could be difference makers in free agency. That's Malik Willis. We're not going to spend to act busy. He's told us that they are not going to be focused on a bunch of splash signings once the Bradley Chubb money hits. But he has told us there's a number of building blocks and cornerstone players on the roster that the team is making a priority. And De'Von Achane in particular, he told us before the draft, is not available for trade. And it's a priority for the team to work out a contract extension with him. It's done. They did it. So Jordan Schultz was the first to report this last night. And his reporting had this as a 4-year contract valued at $68 million in total value. That turns out to be the max value of the contract. And we saw that very quickly from ESPN and NFL Network. I know Marcel Louis-Jacques had a great report on it with the team source that the base value of this contract is $64 million across 4 seasons, which is an average of $16 million per season. Then you have the $4 million in incentives stacked on top of that to add the additional $1 million in potential earnings on an annual basis. Whether you measure it at 17 or 16, it is the third highest annual average salary for an NFL running back in the active NFL. Here's one thing to know, because this is an extension. This does not include the 2026 season. So De'Von was due $5.767 million in cash this year. A large portion of that, over $4.5 million of that, he has already received. And when he received that lump sum, that was kind of the first clue of like all this trade speculation. And are they really going to hang on to him, or are they going to trade him? When the Dolphins paid cash up front for salary cap compliance in the spring, that was kind of the first clue that we may be seeing this come into place. Because this is not a team that's in the business right now of paying cash for players to leave. They have enough debt from past cash that they've paid players that they either told last year or this year to leave. And sure enough, here's De'Von Achane. So you have to stack this almost $6 million on top of the 4-year for 64 base value that De'Von Achane is getting now. So it's 5 years. In reality, it's 5 years, $69.767 million is his total commitment to the Miami Dolphins. And this year, obviously, that some of that money's already been paid out, so it's beyond being guaranteed. It's done. And then he has $32 million in total guarantees otherwise with this new influx in this new contract that he has signed with the Dolphins. So the Dolphins keep their splashiest, most explosive, needle-moving player on the roster is locked in. along with an offensive line that has some investment pieces and a quarterback with a totally different skill set that you're hoping you could set the identity of your offense to, and a tight end room that I think has a chance to be impactful if Greg Dulcich is able to stay healthy and if Will Kazmarek is as good of a player as a blocker as they seem to think that he is coming into the league. You've got a compelling core, right? Your perimeter play is going to be a question. But Achane is going to get a chance to see this through throughout this transitional year in 26. And then hopefully the team will be robust around him, and him and Malik Willis can take advantage of whatever opportunities they are afforded this year and beyond. But he has long-term security. He is one of the highest paid running backs in football. He is one of the highest guaranteed totals of running backs in football.
The Colorado Avalanche with an epic comeback win, winning in overtime, win the series, head to the Western Conference Finals.
Your Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche.
When things just seemed as bad as they could be to start this game, you saw it. Like you saw if you follow on social media and stuff like that, people are like going to bed. This game's over. See you in game 6 back in Minnesota. And I keep saying it on this show, man. Like, why do people continue to say that about this Colorado Avalanche team? Have you learned nothing? This team continually does this. These come from behind wins. They are never, ever out of it, especially in the playoffs. Fantastic game. Fantastic game.
Actually, I think even after Jack Drury scored, if you were watching along on Money Puck, it was something like a 93% chance for Minnesota to win this game. So I can kind of understand. And honestly, all the people who keep saying, I'm going to bed, game over, and then the Avs make some miraculous comeback and win the game, keep going to bed. It helps. I don't know how. I don't know why, but it seems to help.
Right.
My goodness, though, because when you're down 3-0 at the end of the first, I'm not feeling great. Avs make the goaltending change. We'll get to all that because that was obviously key. But then in the second period, you play amazingly, so much better than the first, but you only come away with one goal, and you're still feeling like this is a tall task, especially with Wallstedt playing the way he did through this game and the series. So third period comes around and you go through the first 15, 16 minutes without scoring. And you're starting to get to that crunch time where you're like, okay, you got to pull them soon. You got to really start thinking about this. And once Jack Drury scored, all of those feelings sort of dissolved. It started to feel a lot more like this
Possible.
can and should happen. And that Nathan McKinnon goal.
Yeah.
Let's just spend a second to talk about the position that he put that puck, because it was an absolute pinpoint shot.
Yeah.
I could take that shot 10,000 times and never make it.
Well, you know what it was? It's almost like those who's those guys that put up those like TikTok videos, and they have like the easy shot and the hole is like pretty big, and then the mid-range shot and it's a little bit smaller, and then it's like impossible, and it's literally like the width of a hockey puck. And they're there, they show you the video edited down to 30 seconds. It takes them hours to get that one puck in. That's what it was like.
Yeah.
He had the width of a hockey puck to get that past Wallstedt, and he did.
Oh my gosh. And you knew too, once that one went in, once McKinnon scored that, even going to overtime, as long as the Avs put the pressure on, Wallstedt there's no way he wasn't rattled. So you just knew as long as you could keep that same pressure, you were going to find a way to beat him. Now, you didn't beat him on like a weird bounce or him being out of position. It was a beautiful play from Natchez over to Kulak, but you just felt that way. Of course, they open up overtime with a 2-on-1 coming at Scott Wedgwood, and I thought that game was over right then.
I mean, if McCarron had a brain, like the game's over.
Yeah.
Game was over. and he whiffed on it.
Missed it
Absolutely
entirely.
whiffed on it.
And
So
that-
the Avs got a huge break there,
Yeah.
and they got a break on the Drury goal because that was following an icing, and there were Wild players out there for a little while. You know, those are never good. Never good. And I'm not saying, you know, that those guys were just dogging it on Minnesota, but they needed to win that draw, and they didn't. And then I don't know if I mean, you mentioned like Wallstead was maybe like, I don't remember which the term you use, but I don't.
He was really solid in this game.
Rattled is what you said. Yeah.
Rattled.
I don't know if I'd say rattled, because like if I were him, like, okay, you got two past me that were tip-ins, like to start, right? The McKinnon one, that's just a superstar doing superstar things. But going into overtime is maybe where you're a little bit rattled because of, you know, he hasn't been there before. And I'm not saying Wedgwood has, but
yeah.
Yeah.
But that's where I meant that he was a little bit rattled and he just had to keep the pressure on. It was not necessarily in the regulation, was in overtime, because he did let 3 past him, 2 tips and 1 ridiculous shot. And that kid is extremely confident, and he should be. I'm not saying like he was going into there shaking in the crease, but I think those shots get into a goaltender's head. And much in the same way why you had to pull Blackwood is because you don't want that in their head. And I think that just helps, because it also looked like everybody in Minnesota was tracking Natchez to shoot that puck. And I'm so glad, because Marty doesn't shoot as much as I want him to. Like, shoot the puck more, buddy.
Yeah.
And when he was lining for that up, I'm like, why are you not shooting? Oh my gosh, it's a goal.
Yeah.
So I think he had everybody, including Wallstedt, sold that he was going to shoot. Wallstedt picked up on it and made the push just a hair too late.
Yeah.
And it left tons of room. What better guy to get that than Brett Kulak too?
Well, yeah, you feel good for guys like that. I always get a kick out of, and I get it, like the TNT guys, you know, a lot of people, even on social media, see it, like they always pick who they think is going to get that overtime goal. You have no idea. It's just, it's like a fun thing. Fine. It doesn't bother me or anything like that. But that's why I love when guys like Brett Kulak get the game winner, because 0 people on that staff, and I'm sure 0 people on social media picked him, which is fine, which is understandable. Like you're going to go for the stars and the guys that are playing well in this game. You're just not putting Brett Kulak in that list, that's why I love, you know, and you root for guys like that. For the Avs, like I think, like the way this game started, what was almost like, okay, you know, we were talking about it yesterday. When's the last time they closed a series out on home ice? And then talking to people on the message boards, 2008 was the last time it happened. And then after the first period, you're like, well, I guess it might not happen this year either yet, because it was just bad. It was bad. It was everything. The funny thing about that, like, you know, Minnesota Wild had a great first period, and they get 3 goals. Could have had 4, but 1 was overturned. So a good period for them. They hang 3 on you, and eventually your goalie's pulled. You have a equally as good, probably better second period than their first period, and you have 1 goal to show for it.
Yep.
And that's where I was like, man, like I know this team is never out of it. They're going to push till it says 0s on the scoreboard, but sometimes, as well as, you know, even if you carry that over in the third period, hockey is an unforgiving game sometimes. And maybe you're just not going to come out on top of this game, even though the second looked good and the third turned out to be what it was. But the thoughts were creeping in my head, because time was dwindling down, and it just seemed like, man, this will be a Herculean effort to do it. But they did it.
They did it, man. I like I keep saying, they're just never out. And this is, you know, another way that you won a game. In these 2 series against LA, we've talked about it so many times. These grinding out games, you got those.
in against the Wild. You know, you had a shootout, you had overtime game, 2 overtime games. You had this come from behind win where you're catching, like you're doing all of this stuff that just keeps giving you confidence and preparing you for the next, hopefully 2 rounds that you're going to play. So, man, awesome.
Awesome doesn't even begin to describe. No. You feel, and I just want to hit Kulak a little bit more because we've said so many times we don't notice him, and that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree with when you say like you love that it's a guy like that. He's got 2 points tonight because he also factored in, I believe, on the first goal, the Parker Kelly goal. I think he got it up to Brent Burns, who took the shot that was tipped. So
he did. Yes, you're right. Yep.
He gets 2 points and the first star of the game on NHL. Well deserved. He played pretty solidly defensively, I thought, throughout this entire game too. He did all of those things that you want him to be doing.
Yeah.
And then just finds himself in that right position at the exact right moment. I also got a shout out on that goal. Parker Kelly, like, I know he wasn't setting that up for the goal itself necessarily, but that pass off the boards from in front of the benches to get directly onto Natchez' tape, like,
massive.
Their passing was terrible.
It was,
especially in the first period.
Yeah.
And so when he threw that and it bounces off the boards, I'm like, oh no, hey, here we go. It was perfect. It was the best pass of the game. Maybe there was a couple of good ones in there still too, but that one was
going with that one.
That's gotta be it. I think it has to be the best pass of the game. It was so good. And then, like I said, I love Natchez' game through this entire game. Playoff ghost, not tonight.
No, we're sitting here and we're all excited about this because they won and they pulled out this victory, difficult win, but they got it. It's not to say like they look. I mean, we talked about the first period, but even it goes beyond that. Even in the second period when they looked a lot better. Yeah, this was. I want to give everybody the impression that because we're happy about the win, we're happy with the way they played. Not entirely. You don't want to keep doing that. But
Connor McGahey used a term that I'd love to use, especially for the first period: soggy legs, and I think that's perfect. It didn't even necessarily look like a poor effort because it did feel like they were still trying. I didn't think they came out and just went like, whatever, we'll just coast through this game. But they just looked slow, like they were in mud instead of ice. It was crazy.
I almost feel like, and then this is probably not true, but I almost feel like they felt like Minnesota was just going to come out not with the effort that they did. Because we're down 3-1. We're in their arena. Maybe Minnesota just go through the motions.
Yep.
And Minnesota was like, we're here to play, dude. We are here to play. Like, this is not over. And credit them for that. But it's just I said it on yesterday's episode. Like, this Avalanche team just continues to wear you down.
Yeah.
And Minnesota was up for the task. It doesn't mean just because when the Avs decide like, oh, we're just going to play our style and over the course of 60 minutes that wears you down, we're just going to come out on top just because. I mean, Minnesota was really up for the task and up for the challenge, but the Avs just do not stop.
If you've ever opened a bank account and thought, where did all my money go? You're not alone. Keeping track of subscriptions, spending, and bills can get overwhelming fast. That's where Rocket Money comes in, helping you take control of your finances all in one place. How does Rocket Money help you keep track of your finances? It tracks all of your subscriptions in one spot and can help cancel the ones you don't need with just a few taps. It automatically categorizes your spending so you can actually see where your money is going. And you can set budgets, get alerts, and stay on top of upcoming bills. It just makes everything feel more organized and gives you a clearer picture of your finances day to day. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/lockedon. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon.
The Chiefs caught a break and they are staying home in the USA, and that's good for their 2026 season.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
You are Locked On Chiefs, your daily Kansas City Chiefs podcast.
We got what is the full slate, as I understand, of what the league is going to do. And it looks like this. Melbourne week 1 is, we knew the Rams and Niners. Great. Rio de Janeiro back in Brazil. Week 3, Ravens, Cowboys. Love to see that. I like to see the Ravens have to do a little bit of work. Come back weeks 4 through 6. That's like the English series. All in London. Colts, Commanders, also good for the Chiefs. Eagles, Jags, Texans, also good for general wear and tear. Then they come back, game in France.
Jags doubling up. Sorry, I'm sitting there going,
right?
Wow, okay.
Spending a couple of weeks there should be interesting, and I would expect that they do literally stay there. Then they come back for Paris in week 7, and it's Steelers, Saints. I don't think the Steelers are going to be a factor, but hey, it can't hurt to have another AFC team working hard there. Then Madrid. We talked about this yesterday. The Bengals are going to play that Madrid game against the Falcons. More power to Joe. Good luck staying healthy. Then they come back week 10, Munich. Patriots, another contender that has to go overseas even later in the season in the AFC. I love that. Detroit Lions, week 10 in Germany, in Munich. And then Mexico City wraps it up week 11 with Vikings. And yet the Niners doing it again. So we'll talk about what the NFL likes and doesn't like. But I'm ecstatic because this international schedule has 0 Chiefs on it. And I think that's the big takeaway from today.
Yeah, and I'm very happy to see that. It's interesting. There was a lot of questions whether or not the Chiefs were going to be getting a home game internationally. And if they did that, I think they only have 8 home games this season. So they would actually be down to 7 actual home games at Arrowhead, which I'm sure a lot of people would not be excited about. So that's something to consider, and I'm happy about that part of it. But you look at how this is going to play out. They don't have to travel. They don't go overseas. They get basically a week off or a year off of that kind of thing. And to me, that's a win. I know that there is, as Matt said on our show yesterday, I know that there are people in the Chiefs organization that aren't happy with it. But you know what? I'm happy with it, and I would bet that the football players and the coaches are probably happy with it as well.
Yeah, I have to think so. We will get to that part as well. But not having to do that, I still believe Brazil screwed them up, set them off on a path that made not only Xavier Worthy's, who I think was probably the most directly impacted player on that because of that injury, on play number 3 of the season. But I think it set a tone for the entire team for the entire year. So knowing that, you know what, you might have to play on Thursday here and there. You're going to have to play some Monday nights, some Sunday nights, but you don't have to get on that 10-hour flight from Kansas City to London or even longer to Munich, or God forbid going down to South America. So I think that allows the team to relax a little bit as well.
Yeah, and it's exciting because I think that the Chiefs are going to continue to try to push to play more overseas games, and I absolutely hate it. I don't think it's good for the organization. Well, let me rephrase. It's good for the organization. It's good for the fan base. I don't think it's good for specifically the team in general and winning that season. They've shown that they have the ability to do it. That's great, and I'm okay with that. But at the same time, it's one of those things where, yeah, and like I said, if they would have had a home game overseas, they would have played even less. I mean, they would have had 7 games at Arrowhead versus 8, which it's still not a great home stretch or home slate of games, but it is what it is. when you're sitting there with the Jets and the Cardinals and the Raiders as 3 of the 5 teams or 3 of the 8 teams are already playing.
But as I go back and forth between these two graphics, and folks, if you're on the audio, make sure you come back and check out the video. Take a look at those home games. Who's playing in those? San Francisco, Colts, Patriots.
Yep.
You look at this. Patriots, Colts, San Francisco twice, depending on when they do this. If the Chiefs face the San Francisco 49ers after week 12, they will have a team that is, I think, depleted. We know how hard it was for them to go to Brazil. Now they're starting in Australia, and they have to come back and go back to Mexico City, which, okay, it's closer to San Francisco than it is to Kansas City, but still, it's another out-of-country, a rigmarole, the whole headache of going internationally.
Well, and
I still think it's an advantage.
And it's not even that. I mean, yeah, it may be closer than Kansas City, but you can't tell me that the ability to get to stadiums, the ability to sleep in a normal hotel situation, and all of the normal travel stuff that you're used to, because the NFL has it figured out with the stadiums and where teams are going to stay and how they're going to get to the stadium and when they're going to get to the stadium and all the travel stuff. Remember, for those of you that have been listening for a while, Matt talked about this last season, going to Brazil and the nightmare of trying to figure out how you're going to get there, because some of these players will go get the first bus to go to the stadium, and that wasn't an option in Brazil. And I'm not trying to make excuses for why they lost. There's a whole bunch of different things as to that, but it does change your preparation and how you get ready for things. And when you're talking about NFL players, you're talking about guys that are creatures of habit. Yeah. Like, that's just part of things. That's how they do things. They get it set up for the season, and this is how they are normally used to doing it. And going international and having to deal with a whole bunch of different things is completely different. And that's another reason why you start looking at, going to the Super Bowl. Super Bowl week is completely different than everything else too. And that's a whole other ball game of dealing with the stuff that you're not used to dealing with. But at least you're in the United States where they have things mapped out. You know where people are staying. You know how that's going to work out. So it works to your advantage in that regard. But I'm happy they're not traveling internationally this year. But I guarantee you they'll be traveling internationally in 2027. That's just going to be how it's going to be.
The ACC almost unanimously supports doubling the size of the college football playoff, even though their TV partner is against it.
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference.
We've talked about this so much because it's been a big topic for the last couple of months. The overwhelming support now for doubling the size of the college football playoff. The ACC is apparently for it almost unanimously. The Big 12 has come out in support of it. The Big 10 is all over it. Right now, like the lone out of the Power 4 conferences, only the SEC is against it, and we'll tell you why they're against it in a moment. But the other interesting revelation that came out today is ESPN, who holds the college football playoff TV rights, they are against it. Now, Kenton, when I first saw that ESPN was against it, I'm kind of thinking, wait, why would they be against it? But then we found out there's a pretty simple reason why ESPN does not want the playoff to get bigger.
Yeah, I look at this, and obviously we know that the money is the driver of everything, but we did not know the extent of the exact, the allegiances are being formed literally basically off who makes money and who doesn't. That's right. Literally exactly what's happening in this moment. So, Dono, the more you look into this, it's like Pusha T said, it's going to be a surgical summer. We're going to peel this thing back layer by layer. And let me tell you, myself and Alex Dono, mainly Alex Dono, have been doing the knowledge all day on what's going on. Dono, let the people know what's good and who opposes and who doesn't oppose and just why.
Yeah, and I give credit to Sam Newman, a writer from Yahoo Sports on their sports business section, because he laid it out in simple terms. And Kenton and I, we both knew that, money is the reason why some are for the expansion, some are against. We just didn't know the extent of this web of money. So no final decisions on expansion are expected soon, they write in Yahoo Sports. but that hasn't stopped stakeholders from making their preferences known. Jim Phillips's comments put a public face on what Yahoo Sports reported last month, that ESPN executives had privately dismissed the 2014 format. ESPN holds exclusive broadcast rights to the college football playoff, but here's the catch. ESPN holds exclusive rights up to 14 teams. So if they make it 16, if they make it 24, beyond 14 teams, additional playoff games go to the open market, which is exactly why the network, ESPN, would very much prefer to keep the entire postseason for itself. So that explains why ESPN is against it. Now, as far as why the ACC would be for it, despite the fact that their TV partner is not, we can explain that on, you have trouble putting multiple teams in the college football playoff already if you're the ACC. If you double it, it gives you, more irons in the fire, more opportunity to get teams in, even if your TV partner is against it. But Kenton, this also explains why the Big Ten, who actually is aligned with their TV partner, why the Big Ten are the ones that started pushing this proposal to make it 24. Because if you expand it to 24 teams and 10 games hit the open market, you better believe Fox, who's the TV partner for the Big Ten, is going to be the big player in getting most, if not all, of those extra games, which would get Fox, who obviously is a really powerful player here when it comes to college football broadcasting. But at this moment, Fox doesn't have any college football games beyond Thanksgiving weekend. They don't have bowl games. They don't have any college football playoff games. ESPN controls that. So if you expand that CFP to 24, maybe almost half of that ends up on Fox, where the Big Ten benefits from that on the back end because of their TV deal. So this, to me, it really it threads some of these needles that we didn't understand why, certain players were rooting for different things. I think now we get it.
Dono, the Fox angle is one thing, but I think it's worse than that in terms of ESPN. Because if Fox was the only competition, you got to outbid one person or one corporation. Amazon could get in the mix.
That's a good point. Oh, man.
They've already got NBA playoff games. They've already got NFL games. College football is the only.
You got Duke basketball games coming soon.
The college basketball is what they got, but let's be real, right? Jeff Bezos and his greed know no limits. It literally knows no limits. It started off as a book company, and now you can't even go on to any websites without using their products. So,
that's right.
What does this mean? Now, you're not just standing there looking at Fox saying, all right, we can beat you. I know we can beat Murdoch money. We can do that. Now you got to say, I can beat Murdoch money and I can beat Bezos money. And mind you, this ain't just any football game. This is college football playoff games. Even if you're talking about, even if you're talking about, for the most part, it's not really the major players that are going to be in any potential game that could be out. You're still talking about big-time college football. Even if you're talking about you've got your group of 5 team and whatever team barely clung in to get in out of the Power 4, guess what? You're still looking at, let's say, a Tulane versus Iowa. Let's say you're still looking at a Washington versus Louisiana Lafayette. You're still looking at a FAU versus somebody along those lines, somebody of that, like a Mississippi State or something like that. That is still enough to have people like, well, damn it, I'm gonna watch that. Which means that's a ton of money in ad revenue. Yeah. This thing, man, I'm telling you, is so loaded. You got to pull this thing back layer by layer, or you're gonna miss a layer, because it's just all these complex workings. And of course, all of it ends and begins with money. But it's still so much complexity of, below 14, it's still ours. Well, if we go to 16, it's one game going. But if you go to 24, now you got 5 or 6 games going. And what's happening with this and that? It's so much to keep up with.
By the way, there's one more layer to the onion that I haven't even peeled yet, right? Because, so remember, there's one power conference that is against expansion, that wants to keep it small-ish, right? Wants to keep it at 12. And that's the SEC. Now, you and I were wondering earlier this week, why does the SEC want to keep it at 12? So here's the deal, at least the way that Yahoo explained it. We know that if they expand to 24, conference championship games are killed. They're done, right? Now, obviously, I'm sure every conference makes some money from their conference championship game, but they don't make $80 million except the SEC. The SEC's conference championship game is worth an estimated $80 million. So Greg Sankey and his staff, I'm sure, crunched the numbers and said, you know what, we already get, more teams into the CFP than most as it is, and our conference championship game is by far more valuable to us than any of the others are to them. So I'm sure they ran the numbers and said it's not financially worth it for us to trade in the SEC championship game for, additional playoff spots. So that seems to be the primary reason why the SEC is the only conference that is against going to 24. Now, I don't think I've ever said this on this show before. I've maybe never said it out loud before, but I actually agree with the SEC. Now, not for their reasoning.
Yeah.
Like they're thinking of a good thing for the wrong reasons, but I'm actually with the SEC. I'm perfectly happy with 12. Let's keep it at 12.
It's that meme of one person pulling the rope and then another person on the other side, and then the person on your side, somebody joins in, and it's like somebody that you would think you would never be on the same side as. But this this rope creates strange bedfellows. I'm gonna tell you something.
It's like another meme that says the worst person just made a
great point. See, do we have Alex Donald here today, or do we have Detective Benoit Blanc? Because I'm telling you, he's on it right now. He's working the sleuth game in a way that you haven't seen. $80 million. $80 million will be sacrificed here. And like Dono said, how many teams already get in? But let's take it a step further. Were people not arguing for a Texas team that was very mid last year to get in?
Yeah, they were.
Were people not sitting there, oh, how do you leave Texas out? They beat Texas A&M, and so what that they don't have any other good wins? They've got Arch Manning. They got so much. I'm telling you, Dono, they know we're going to get these teams in regardless if we expand to 16. But if you go to 24, now we lose $80 million to recoup some of that money. And let's go a little bit deeper. The ACC is the reason that the SEC is going to oppose it, because the ACC did something that no other conference could possibly imagine. The Success Initiative. How much money from their playoff run did Miami have to give to the ACC?
None. They got to keep it all.
You don't think Georgia's going to look around and say, now wait a damn minute, why don't we have that deal? You don't think Texas, Bama, Florida, you don't think none of them are going to say, wait, hold on. How did Florida State and Miami end up keeping all their playoff funds, but we got to give it away? So now, for the time being, in the short term, you'll still get that playoff revenue. But they know that $80 million this year, probably going to be $90 million next year, probably going to be 110 to 122 years, probably going to be 130. And so when you scale it that way, but then you peel back, that's going to go missing, and you're going to likely have to institute the Success Initiative to keep some of your teams from going rogue. You're missing out on hundreds of millions of dollars over the next decade.
Craig Berube is out as head coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Craig Berube has been fired by the Toronto Maple Leafs. So John Chaika's first big order of business as general manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs, he fired the coach, and there will be a new coach that they'll need to go out and find. Dave, your literal instant reaction to the news right now. Craig Berube out in Toronto.
Well, if my phone blowing up says anything, it's a lot of excitement, I will say, not because somebody lost their job, but because a change that most of us were hoping, and Mike's just showing his phone. It's ridiculous right now.
Well, I literally 2 minutes ago, I have the blurb from 2 minutes ago. That's when we found out. So this is all raw reaction. To the news of Craig Berube. But it's not as though we weren't. It's not that it's not surprising.
It's not surprising.
Yes, exactly. It's not surprising because it's something that we've been talking about for a while, and it felt like, Berube and Chaika just they just didn't mesh. It was weird to me. Like, I understood why Chaika might want to give Berube an opportunity, keep that fire the coach bullet in your chamber. But it just never felt like it was going to work. John Chaika, an analytics guru, data-driven guy, and old school Craig Berube, meat and potatoes, dump and chase Craig and Berube. Doesn't feel like those two are going to match. And ultimately, these guys reportedly got together over the weekend. Sounds like John Chaika did not hear what he wanted out of Craig Berube. I'm sure we'll hear from Chaika at some point soon. I think there was a news presser that was sent out that we can try and find in just a moment. But ultimately, Chaika obviously didn't hear what he wanted to out of Craig Berube when they met this weekend and decided that what's best for the club moving forward is if they go in a different direction and go in a new direction. And that means,
would you like me to read what John Chaika had to say? I'll even throw it up on YouTube for those that are watching it on YouTube right now. All right, there we go. So they announced the parting ways. Craig is a tremendous coach and even better person. This decision is more reflective of an organizational shift and opportunity for a fresh start than it is an evaluation of Craig. We are grateful for his leadership, professionalism, and commitment to the Maple Leafs organization and wish Craig and his family nothing but the best moving forward. And they also note that the club's next head coach will determine the rest of the coaching staff, which usually is the case. The coach gets to pick his staff. I think the big part of that is an organizational shift.
Yeah, what does that mean?
A fresh start. Essentially, what Craig Berube's, I guess, whatever he said in the meeting didn't mesh with where the Leafs were going.
No. Now, does that, like, what do you think that means, though? Like, does that have anything to do, like, is that a play style as an organizational shift in terms of play style, or organizational shift in terms of we're going to strip this thing down to the studs? Craig Berube is not a developmental coach, and we're actually going to go into a rebuild instead of a retool and bring in a younger, fresher, more forward-thinking coach into the mix. Like, could that be what that means? That's a vague statement. I would love for a follow-up there on what he means by organizational shift. Do you just mean, broadly, as in, like, you're going into an analytical, more forward-thinking, shift in how you play, or are you talking about how you're going to create your team? That is an interesting way to phrase it. I think there's two avenues it could be.
Yeah, it very well could be the way that the organization wants to move forward as a team, and how their viewpoint is different than how Craig is, or they just the way that his vision doesn't align with his, right, in terms of how the Leafs should be playing. But yeah, I do think that the organizational shift part, that's something that would definitely need a follow up. If I'm somebody that's going to get a chance to ask, I would hope that you get a chance to ask John Chaika about this.
They have to have a press conference at some point in the next couple of days here. No, like, if you fire your head coach, you got to be able to speak on it, right? Like,
yeah, absolutely. If you're making a big change like that,
you
have to address it at some point. And I was looking, I don't think that there was any, they're not going to announce it, right? Usually they would say a press conference has been scheduled or planning to be scheduled. But yeah, I'm not seeing that. So I'm very curious to see if that's something that comes down at some point.
They could wait until they find their next head coach and maybe have that, all in one type of discussion possibly. Yeah. And that might be the way that they decide to go about things. I don't know.